of the Toledo Police Department, Dale Emsch from the Law Department, Carlene Henderson from the Law Department, and John Madigan from the Law Department. We certainly also have worked with our friends and partners at the Toledo Municipal Court and the Toledo Municipal Clerk, but none of those members are on the call or on the Zoom. So we're here tonight to review the proposed traffic enforcement program, which we believe once implemented will be a safe, fair, and efficient program. The goals of the proposed program are simple and complex at the same time, but they are three in number. And that is for the establishment of the program to be compliant with the court order, to enforce speed limits and red lights to ensure public safety, and to employ best practices in both policy and communication on this program. First, I wanted to review, and this is something that we have added in after our initial presentation and upon some questions that we have received from the public, and discuss what the current position of the case, the status of the case, cases are in regard to these traffic cameras. There's some amount of misinformation that is in the atmosphere. So we wanted to make sure that we correct that information. Carlene Henderson and attorneys Carlene Henderson and John Madigan are on this call and can certainly answer any more questions you may have. While I am an attorney, I do not represent the city of Toledo and would not be in a position to offer a legal opinion on these cases, merely providing here an overview. It is not a correct statement to indicate that the red light cameras have been declared unconstitutional, or that upon passage of this ordinance that the city of Toledo would lose local government funds as a result of passing the ordinance. The city of Toledo has been granted a preliminary injunction on that aspect of the case. That is in the trial court, the Court of Common Pleas. If the city loses at the trial court, it would be our intention to appeal to the 6th District Court of Appeals. There are a number of other cities, including Akron and Dayton, that are relaunching their traffic camera enforcement programs. One or more of these cities, could be Dayton, could be Akron, could be another city, we believe, our law department tells us, will ultimately be before the Supreme Court. And the theory of that case is a theory under the home rule position. In other words, that the city of Toledo has should have the ability to determine the best ways to enforce traffic, speed, and red light. The opportunity to be heard aspect of another portion of the case is something that we are resolving, we believe, and Dayton believes, as we are using large portions of their model. We believe we are resolving by imposing this, by reestablishing this plan. The time frame for all of these cases, up to and including the Ohio Supreme Court, we believe is a minimum time frame of 18 months. There has been questions as it relates to the costs for litigation. And as of this date, no additional costs, no attorneys have been hired. Every attorney that works in the law department has been able and willing to defend these cases, and they are already employed by the City of Toledo Law Department. So if we go back up here to the top part, the compliance with the court order we just briefly went over. The second part is about ensuring public safety. And so we wanted to review a little bit of safety data. Many of you may have seen in the Blade recently an article that indicated that Lucas County fatal accidents were up 58% over the same time period in 2019. So through October 18th, there were 43 fatal crashes that occurred in the county, resulting in 45 deaths. The cause of those accidents, at least in part, a contributing factor of those accidents was speed. We reached out to the City of Toledo traffic division, and with some work by Deputy Chief Trinley, who I apologize, Deputy Chief, if you're on the call. I forgot to recognize at the top of the call. He's been very involved in this process. Apologies. But we took that county data that is collected by a number of state agencies, and we took it down to the city level. In the city of Toledo, just from January to July of 2020, There are 28 confirmed fatal crashes, which is an increase of 13 crashes from last year. 43% were attributed to speed, which is an 8% increase over last year. So then we review, and you may recall looking at these graphs that review the serious injury accidents that happen in the intersections, the 21 locations where we have traffic cameras installed. The blue line indicates pre-installation and the red line indicates post-installation. By and large, with the exception of Airport and Burn, which we'll discuss more a little bit later, the installation of the cameras has contributed to the reduction of the serious injury accidents. Same as when we look at total accident counts, again, with the exception of Airport and Burn. But in this instance, if you look also at Secor and Door and Sylvania and Talmadge, there are a number of other dangerous intersections in the city of Toledo where the counts have remained the same or ever so slightly increased. But overall, by and large, the number of accidents after installation has gone down. Another thing I just wanted to highlight, which we have discussed with members of council, but I wanted to make sure the public was aware, is a National Transportation Safety Board, which is a federal agency that is responsible for looking at ways to increase the safety of individuals driving in passenger vehicles, as well as other highway and roadway incidents. What we're referring to here is a 2017 study where the National Transportation Safety Board looked at the countermeasures, efforts, ways, things that could be done to reduce speed-related crashes in passenger vehicles. And they came up with, or they narrowed it down to 3 countermeasures, which include engineering, enforcement, and education. I want to make it clear to members of council that the city of Toledo is not in the position of just throwing up these traffic cameras and saying, well, that's it. You know, we've done our job here. We're good. The fact is that the city of Toledo employs all of these measures in an effort to keep the residents and the visitors to the city of Toledo safe. We can talk a little bit about the engineering process. Members of council are certainly well aware of the amount of times that the administration, through the transportation division or through the engineering division, have come to city council to discuss with you funding for safety studies, the results of safety studies, and the request to accept funds that we receive as a result of applying for safety funds from the federal government, and then the application of those funds. It's a very cumbersome process, but it is one that works and that helps as part of a continuous improvement and a continuous analysis of ways other than enforcement that we can make intersections in the city of Toledo safe. So in other words, the engineering department and the transportation department aren't relying on traffic cameras either. They're still very much doing their jobs and ensuring that these intersections are safe. I'll give you one example. We can refer back here to the Airport and Burn intersection. It remains one of the most dangerous intersections in the city of Toledo and has been that way for a number of years. The engineering department, in partnership with ODOT and with TMACOG and the Ohio State Patrol, collected data on that intersection. They then asked City Council to approve a safety study of that intersection. And the safety study is professionals, engineers, traffic professionals, people that are expert in this area that go in and say, okay, what's wrong with this intersection? And what can be done? Does it need to be widened? Does it need to be reduced? Do we need turn lanes? Do we need flashing lights? Do we need whatever a speed bump? Do we need to make it a roundabout? Whatever the situation is, these experts make a plan. They then come to the city and say, here's what we're recommending that you do. Our engineering department draws up those plans and then applies to the state or the federal government for those dollars. In 2023, based on this exact process, The City of Toledo, in partnership again with ODOT, TMACOG, Ohio State Patrol, have been awarded almost $2 million just for the repair of the Airport and Burn intersection. And that will happen in 2023. There are a number of other examples for 2021 and 2023 where we're looking specifically at some of these very intersections that are listed here, including Lasky and Lewis, Lasky and Talmadge, Dorr and Detroit, and Summit and Cherry, all of which, as a result of this engineering process, will be made safer because of the work that the administration is doing with our partner agencies. I'm going to skip down to the education component and mention that there are a number of programs that are operated through the Toledo Municipal Court, but we believe this new approach, this new program will greatly improve public awareness campaigns around the dangers of speeding. I wanted to skip enforcement for just a moment because I intend on asking Chief Kroll to come in here in just a moment. Again, the comprehensive approach, it's a combination of these measures, is what the National Transportation Safety Board recommends to states and cities take to be the most effective to reduce crashes as a result of speeding. And I would assert, members of council, that we are doing that. As it relates to the automated cameras only, the National Transportation Safety Board has indicates that it is one of the most effective countermeasures to reduce speeding, both in cost effectiveness and in stopping people from going through intersections, either running red lights or speeding. Chief Kroll, if you could please be promoted to a panelist if you haven't already, if you could address council as it relates to the regular traffic patrols and the high visibility enforcement that Toledo Police also engages in.
Sure. Thanks, Gretchen. Chair, co-chair, members of council. As Gretchen said, I'm going to be talking about the regular patrol and high visibility enforcement aspect of the enforcement countermeasure. We'll start with the most obvious, with the regular patrol. Our Toledo police officers are on the road 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And one of our core tenets and one of our most important measures that we do is vehicle infraction enforcement. It's one of our missions, and it's one that we have to take very seriously. So we have our officers around the street. If they're not going to a call for service or operating code 3 for a reason, they're looking for vehicular violations. And whether people like it or not, it's our job to maintain safety on our roadways. So when one of our officers does a traffic stop for an infraction, our goal is education. It's not just citing. So we teach our officers in the academy and in the field training program, if while they're speaking with the resident or the motorist and they think that they've got the message through, they'll give them a warning. Otherwise, or if it's a more egregious case, they'll be forced to issue a citation. We also have our traffic section, which is a core group of officers that, as their name implies, they enforce strictly traffic violations. And they'll respond to locations that we get from residents through Engage Toledo. Speeding, cut-throughs, whatever the case may be. They also work with the elected officials who are getting calls from their constituents on motor vehicle safety issues. And when they're not doing that, anecdotally, they know where the hot spots are in the city, and they are proactively policing there. So moving on to the high visibility enforcement, that's nothing more than a universal traffic safety approach, which is designed to create a deterrence and to change dangerous driving habits. And there's several ways of doing that. One of them would be enhanced patrols. There's several involved in that. One of them being saturation patrols. And that means it's location centered. Dangerous intersection, dangerous roundabout, a long, flat, straightaway roadway that is known for speeding. Another is wave patrols, which, unlike saturation, wave is violation centered. So in a case like this, we would go out looking for distracted driving or not wearing seatbelts or something specific to the violation. And finally, we have multi-jurisdictional. And as the name implies, we team up with another law enforcement agency, OSP, the Lucas County Sheriff's Office, whatever the agency, to do specific enforcement. So included with the enhanced patrols, we have electronic message boards. We've all seen them driving down the road. It says speed limit 55, your speed 75. In addition to those, we have the OBI checkpoint signage, the signs that say roadways in this jurisdiction are patrolled by aircraft, or in the case of Toledo, where we have signs saying that motor vehicle violations are enforced by photo enforcement as well. And we also have command posts where we can set things up where we can let the motorists know what we're doing. When it comes to enhanced or high visibility enforcement, we want to be as obvious as humanly possible. The goal is to make the motoring public know that we're out there and to be aware that we are enforcing these motor vehicle laws to create safety. And quite honestly, when the perceived risk of getting caught goes up, the likelihood that people are going to engage in unsafe driving behaviors goes down. So that is, other than the automated, those are the other two parts of the enforcement countermeasures that the NTSB was referring to in 2017. Gretchen?
Thank you, Chief. So the question that you may be asking yourself is why now? Why is this something that we need to start now? And that is because the shift that will be required to allow these cases to be heard in Toledo Municipal Court and to allow the processes to be handled by the Toledo Municipal Court clerk requires us to take a few backward steps. And one of the first steps is for Norris, which is a partner agency that programs court and police computers to allow them to do all the processes related to processing tickets, has to do the programming. And that's going to take a number of months. And they are not able to begin the programming until Toledo City Council approves the plan. So while we have talked to all of our partners and we believe that we are on track with the timeline that we have developed, we do need to have City Council approval, and getting that approval will allow us to begin issuing tickets in the first part of 2021. We anticipate that we would be able to have a complete operational shift for the traffic camera tickets to Toledo Municipal Court on or about this date. The traffic camera tickets will be filed in the Traffic Bureau of the Toledo Municipal Clerk's office. They will remain civil tickets, civil infractions. When a resident receives a ticket in the mail, all subsequent interactions that the resident has with that ticket will happen through the Toledo Municipal Court. To break it down a little bit, there are three scenarios when a traffic camera ticket is received. The first is an individual can receive a ticket and pay it. They can receive a ticket and appeal it. So we're going to walk through a couple of these, each of these a little bit more. The first is if a resident receives a ticket in the mail and they decide to pay the ticket. The ticket does in fact come in the mail in a regular number 10 white envelope from Red Flex. There is a folded piece of paper in there with a photo of your license plate, and the date and time and location, address, all of the information about the ticket and the fact that it is issued to the presumed driver of that vehicle. If you say, yep, that was me. I knew I sped on that day, or I went through that light. I wondered if I was going to get caught, something along those lines, and you decide to pay it. One of the improved processes with this proposed plan is that the ticket would be able to be paid by phone, online, by mail, or in person to the clerk of court counter at the Toledo Municipal Court. There are payment plans that are available through Toledo Municipal Court, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. The second thing that could happen, the action that could happen, is that you receive the ticket in the mail and you decide to appeal for whatever reason. The notice of appeal process will follow the local rules of the Toledo Municipal Court, so that on or about April 1st, a resident who requests an appeal of the ticket by filling out the form that will be enclosed in the ticket. It states, I appeal, this is the reason, and you can then e-file that, fax it, or deliver it in person to the Toledo Municipal Court clerk. The clerk will then communicate with you about a hearing date, assuming you would show up for that hearing date, that you would present your version of events, and then a finding would be made on the ticket. We have worked with our partners at Toledo Municipal Court and made up a request of the judges to set a $40 filing fee, again, based on what the Dayton model is. It should be noted that the filing fee is assessed to the non-prevailing party at the conclusion of the case. In other words, this is not a barrier. You do not have to come up with $40 if you believe that you should not be responsible for the ticket. You do not have to come up with $40 to appeal it. If it's resident versus City of Toledo and the resident loses, they would pay $160 at the end of the case. If it's resident versus City of Toledo and the city loses, they would pay the $40. We would pay the $40 filing fee as the non-prevailing party. The breakdown of that $40 filing fee is that $26 goes to support legal aid, $3 goes to legal news. That is a requirement for publication. Those two first breakdowns are statutory in nature. They cannot be amended. $10 would go to the court, and $1 per appeal would go to the City of Toledo General Fund. The third option that is available to anyone is that they could receive the ticket in the mail and they could do nothing. They could take no action. And we would not be looking into the minds of the individual to determine what their intent is. It could be forgetting. It could be deciding not to participate. It could be any number of reasons. But all tickets that are not paid in the statutory time period will be collected after April 1st by the Toledo Municipal Court clerk. It is stated on the ticket when you get your ticket in the mail that you have 30 days to pay or appeal your ticket. After that, a $10 late fee will be added to the ticket per Toledo Municipal Court rule. Again, as an incentive to pay within the 30 days. 45 days after the 30 days, so 75 days after receipt of the ticket will be sent to collection per Toledo Municipal Court practice. So let's talk about the breakdown of the fee. The cost of the ticket will remain $120. What were the current breakdown, or the former breakdown is really the more accurate way to say it, is that $30 went to Red Flex for administration and equipment, $90 to the City of Toledo General Fund per ticket. The proposed breakdown moving forward after April 1st would be, again, $30 per our contract to Red Flex for administration and equipment, $5 to the Toledo Municipal Clerk Computerization Fund, $3 to the Toledo Municipal Court Judges Fund, and $80 to the City of Toledo General Fund. I skipped that $2 there intentionally. I'd like to review that very briefly. As a matter of policy, a policy decision, and in our research and investigating what other communities are doing, and in fact, looking at some of the best practices that state and federal agencies study when implementing these programs. One of the practices is reserving or secluding some portion of the money to be reinvested into safety programming, messaging, as well as programs that support the reinstatement of individuals' driver's licenses. If you've never lost your driver's license before, or failed to have your plates renewed, or didn't get down to the BMV in time, you understand sometimes how difficult it is to sort of unwind that, especially if you're caught by the police not having one of those things. And so all through 2019, the city of Toledo, in partnership with the Toledo Bar Association, Toledo Legal Aid, the court, the judges at the court, and the BMV, hosted a series of license reinstatement clinics where we were able to help many, many people get their licenses back. This money would go into an account to allow us to continue to provide that programming and, in fact, enhance it. As I've said before, when we presented this, gone through this presentation, it's probably it's difficult to suggest that there are too many benefits to the residents to receiving a ticket in the mail. It's probably not your best mail day when that happens. But we do believe that there are things that are made easier, that these civil tickets that are mailed as a result of a traffic camera as opposed to a criminal police ticket, are things that we should make sure that members of council and the community are reminded of. First and foremost is that this is a consistent and effective speed and red light enforcement program. It is almost an impossibility that we would be able to have police officers and crews at 21 key intersections 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These cameras are there as a consistent and effective deterrent measure. Traffic tickets issued by cameras are civil and not criminal. And even though we are then now placing them in the Toledo Municipal Court, they will remain civil tickets. In other words, drivers are not subject to warrants if they don't pay. They're not subject to warrant blocks. If you're don't know what a warrant block is, that's something that the court can put on you if you don't pay or if you don't appear in court, which limits your ability to get your driver's license back, to update your plates or your driver's license. Civil tickets are not subject to that. And most certainly you're not subject to arrest or subject to any serving any time in jail as a result of a camera issued ticket. Camera issued tickets also do not apply points to your driver's license as the non-civil tickets do, and they do not impact your auto insurance rates. Traffic tickets issued by cameras are safer for police and drivers as you're pulling on the side of 475 or onto a busy intersection in the city of Toledo. Officers having to get out of their car and approach vehicles that are on the side of the road doesn't happen, obviously, with the traffic ticket. A ticket also issued by a camera doesn't give rise to any other interaction with police in terms of searching a vehicle, looking at doing a records check, or anything else that may be on an individual's driver's license or record as a result of being stopped by the police. The other thing we want to make sure that members of council and the community are aware of is that the Toledo Municipal Court for some time, when you appear in front of a judge, have a number of programs and opportunities for individuals who are working to pay back fines and court costs, working to get their driver's licenses back, that allow certain percentages to be paid, and then they'll give them more time and those kinds of things. And much of that is on an individual judge by judge basis. There is in fact a judgment entry in the Toledo Municipal Court that allows individuals who have difficulty paying the $120 once they receive a ticket to get an extension of time by paying $25. So you could pay $25, get 90-day extension of time, pay another $25 89 days later and get another 90 days and another 90 days and another 90 days. In other words, by paying $25 a month every 90 days, you could have 450 days to pay your $120 ticket. And while still $25 is difficult for some in our community, certainly believe it is much fairer and equitable way to be able to collect these fees. Finally, we want to go through some of the proposed process, policy, and communication improvements. Again, we are really looking at this as an opportunity to improve the program as it was previously operated or communicated. There are a number of things, again, in research and looking at data, in looking at what other cities and states do, and in looking at the state and federal agencies who are responsible for this kind of work, to employ some of the best practices. Some of the communication best practices as established by AAA, Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety, and the National Safety Council include installing prominent warning signs at camera locations in major roadways, holding a kickoff event, a media event, indicating that these are going back up, this is starting, everybody be safe, be careful, drive safely. Introduce a sustained public education campaign, and publicize changes to new camera locations and select sites based on data. The current 21 locations that we have are based on data, and we would, of course, if new locations were added, use data to select those locations as well. I wanted to be able to show members of council as well as the public about some potential sign images. This sort of middle left one is one that we're taking a really close look at that shows, it gives notice to drivers that a municipal speed camera will be coming soon. You can look at the bottom right here to see, I'm sure everyone on this call recognizes the school zone sign, but adding a little orange or yellow sign here at the bottom that indicates photo enforcement. It's just another notice to drivers to be aware that they are on camera. As mentioned just before, installation of signs on 475 and elsewhere. It is the city's intention to increase our reliance or have a greater reliance on the stationary cameras with posted signs. And in fact, we would like to increase the number of stationary cameras from 21 to 31 by the end of 2021. Finally, members of council, I would like to just draw your attention to another option that is available when you consider funding and the court cases and everything else. But one of our goals is to be able to purchase a mobile enforcement solution. And so this is a item that the members of council, I'm sure, can attest. We get complaints about speeding in neighborhoods. We get complaints into Engage Toledo about people speeding, about drag racing in certain areas. And so the idea here is that once we get to a certain number of those complaints, or it's clear to the chief of police or to the safety director that, hey, this area is really becoming a problem and we're getting a lot of concerns here, we would post signs that indicate that the speed would be enforced. And then these mobile units would be able to be placed for a temporary period of time on the road, either on a tripod, as you see here on your left, or mounted into a police vehicle, as you see here in the center. These cameras will more likely than not, if purchased or financed, be used in residential areas because they are only able to perceive speed up to 70 miles an hour, while they are able to look at speed over 4 lanes of road. So, Mr. Chairman, that is the end of the PowerPoint presentation. Certainly, we are available for any questions you or anyone else may have. And I can stop share screen, whatever you would like me to do.
I think we can leave it up for now.
Okay.
So what we're going to do for the attendees is looks like we have 27 right now. So we're going to go with about a 3-minute time limit for comments. Is there anyone on council that has any questions before we get started? All right, I don't see any. So if we could start with the attendees, Julie.
The first one with a hand up is Corey Spacky. Mary, I do not have permission to allow him to speak.
Looks like he's got it.
Okay.
Hi,
Corey?
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is what is being done to prevent the corporatization of the Toledo Police Force using Red Flex's cameras? And what jurisdiction does Red Flex have against the people of Toledo?
Chief, do you want to take the first part of that?
And how is it legal for a company to have any sort of jurisdiction over the people of Toledo?
I will briefly speak on the jurisdiction, but I believe the law department is probably more suited to answer that. Red Flex is the conduit for Toledo's program. They're simply the vendor who provides us the cameras. So when it comes to jurisdiction, it's still the city of Toledo, the Toledo Police Department. They simply are the manufacturer and the vendors of the equipment, such as L3 is the vendor of our in-car camera system, and GTAC is the manufacturer and vendor of our body-worn cameras. It's the same concept.
Right, but does Red Flex not profit from each ticket that is given using their camera systems?
Sure, they're a for-profit company, and they develop the software, they develop the equipment, and that's we don't own it. We're using their equipment. That's why they're getting a cut of the tickets.
Right, they're getting a cut of each ticket, but shouldn't they be purchased as sort of like a lump sum instead of just being essentially sorting people for, each ticket that they get by a corporate entity? And it's not the Toledo Police that are profiting directly. It is a corporate entity that is profiting from ticketing individuals.
I get your point, and it makes sense. Unfortunately, they don't offer that option to cities who are looking for this type of technology.
Right, which is why the CEO of Red Flex was sentenced to 30 months in prison for bribery in Chicago, Illinois.
I'm aware of that.
So why would we want to bring something like this into Toledo? I just don't see how it benefits the people or the police force. It's just corporatizing and further increasing, we have a big issue between the people and trusting the police. And it's just, I understand that it's safer in a way for the cop to just send you a ticket, but it's demoralizing, it's depersonalizing, and it just allows them to extort,
I don't agree with the extort part of it. I know the issues. I'm not as up to date on the former management and leadership at Red Flex who had those legal issues. I don't even remember how many years ago it was. I know there's a whole new leadership team, and there hasn't been any kind of issues since then. And you rattled off so many questions, I lost my train of thought. So I understand your position. It's for me, it's a safety issue, 100%, complete and utterly. When I get a traffic officer send me a screenshot of the Red Flex camera when someone's going 126 miles an hour on I-75 at Ottawa River Road, we have a speeding problem here. The ethical or philosophical discussions on privatization or corporatization of the police department, that's for people outside of the police department. My job is to keep motorists in the city safe. And truth be told, these type of traffic cameras do that.
I'm sorry, we've reached 3 minutes.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jonathan McAtee. Jonathan, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, my first question is for Chief Kroll. He just mentioned the speeder at 126 miles. How is that effective to send him a ticket in the mail versus actually pulling him over?
Well, I don't know about you, but $120 hit in my wallet is a deterrent. To be perfectly honest, if the officer would have jumped back in his or her police car and chased that person down, now I have two people going 120 miles an hour on the expressway, and I don't see how that is any safer than mailing a ticket.
With that being said, though, radios are still faster than cars.
In theory, yes. But a person's still going 120 miles an hour, and by the time anybody gets there, this person is going to be well out of the city of Toledo.
Okay, well then moving on to my next question is, by adding a fee for people to appeal, isn't that just a deterrent to make people appeal to allow the city of Toledo to still collect their money?
I can respond to that. And there is no fee unless you lose the appeal. So
Okay, then who has burden of proof for the ticket then?
the burden of proof would be on the city of Toledo.
Oh, so they changed it from from the person to prove they were not guilty to the opposite. Now burden of proof is on the city?
I don't know what you're referring to about proving not guilty.
Well, initially when the tickets were issued, it was the burden of proof on the citizen to prove that they were not, in fact, not speeding.
I don't think that's true. Carlene or John, do you want to respond?
Hi, this is Carlene Henderson. I'm with the legal department. I was not part of the appeal process prior to this, but I do know that you will be filing an affidavit. Perhaps someone else was driving the car. There'll be a court process. It will be before a magistrate, and it'll be the same as if you took a ticket from a police officer into court, only it is a civil infraction, not a criminal infraction. And I'm going to yield to John Madigan, who has been active with this program for longer than I.
Thank you. Basically, what your question is, who's got the burden? The burden has always been on the city of Toledo. Under the system we have now, it's a prima facie case that the person was speeding and and was the owner of the vehicle that was photographed. That prima facie evidence is admissible only after an officer testifies to that. Now, once the officer has testified to that, the other side, the person who's charged, can try to rebut that by saying, no, that wasn't me, or no, that wasn't, I wasn't going that fast, or whatever. But the burden has never shifted. It's always going to be on the city, and it's always going to be by a preponderance of the evidence.
Okay, thank you.
3 minutes.
Oh, could I just have one question or one more comment? I would just ask that if we're going to have appeal, to just make it the $10 that was paid towards the courts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Yusuf Bader. Sir, if you'd like, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I had a question. I know the presenter mentioned that first slide about the unconstitutionality of these cameras would be addressed by one of the legal representatives, but I'm not a lawyer, but I am a history teacher, and I know the 10th Amendment in our Ohio Constitution says, in any trial in any court, the party accused shall be allowed to meet the witnesses face to face. So if a camera is the witness, how do if I go to appeal that, who's the accuser that I get to constitutionally meet in person?
I can briefly touch on that. Before any citation is issued, a Toledo police officer reviews everything. If there is anything questionable in his or her eyes, there is no citation issued. So it's not like a photo is taken and we just just believe and trust Red Flex to do everything. A sworn police officer reviews every single ticket before it is mailed out. And that person, that officer, is in the hearings or before the change. That traffic officer is at every hearing. So the motorist has that right to talk to the officer.
Okay, and then my second, not so much a question, just kind of a comment, a statement of opposition to this whole thing, that you showed studies that say that, this actually helps public safety. When, if you go to the National Motorists Association, they have a laundry list of studies that say the opposite. And those are studies done by independent group that have no connection to government entities trying to justify these cameras or the companies like Redflex that produce them. And a laundry list of studies that say these cameras tend to, at times, increase accidents rather than decrease them. And again, that's the National Motorists Association. Anyone on here listening or the council members, please go look at that. And if that's the case, then I think it's pretty clear that the main motivator for this ordinance to put these cameras back is money and not public safety. And I think we can all agree that if money is the motive, wherever money is the main motivator for something, corruption follows it very easily and very quickly. And, we've seen enough of that in Toledo, especially recently. So I hope you all can see that. You're not ignorant to the fact that corruption follows money when that's the main motivation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It seems like the questions are taking up the lion's share of our time. So let's just, those that are in the audience that want to make a comment, let's limit it to your comments or testimony for or against the proposal. Thank you.
The next would be Chris Rutledge. Chris, you have 3 minutes. Chris?
Chris Rutledge, are you out there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I have a prepared statement that I'm going to have to cut down drastically, so bear with me here. I reside here in Toledo. I grew up in the Toledo area and have lived in the city with my family for 13 years. I currently do work in law enforcement and have served in various levels of the field for over 10 years. Strongly opposed to the automated photo enforcement and do not support the City of Toledo reinstating program. I believe traffic safety in Toledo can be best addressed through the existing resources of our very capable police department, building and sustaining partnerships with other law enforcement agencies, i.e. the troopers, and proper civil engineering of our roadways and intersections. There's value to having a uniformed officer stop a vehicle for committing a traffic violation. First and foremost, violation is being addressed at the time it's observed. The officer has discretion and can exercise that discretion based on their interaction with the driver. What's their story? Where are they going? Do they have a driving record? Did they just get their license reinstated and just become able to afford insurance, and now they're on their way to a job interview? I mean, there's untold numbers of reasons people do what they do, not necessarily justifying why they violated the law, but it allows officers to exercise discretion. This is all important information that the camera can't gather or assess. Other dangerous violations can be investigated, such as OVI, medical emergencies, and other felonious activities. I know I've heard this example, I believe, twice already, once from the chief who addressed it. I think we're missing something substantial. If an officer can take a picture of a vehicle going 126 miles an hour on the interstate, but that car isn't stopped. What happened? Were they fleeing the scene? Are they drunk? We don't know. And if an incident like this occurs and somebody is killed because police failed to attempt and intervene, I suspect only then will this program come to a grinding halt. Can you imagine the family of a dead driver receiving a photo enforcement ticket 2 weeks after their loved one died, when an officer could have at least tried to intervene? It'll only need to happen once. I want to bring up Redflex real quick. The company had a contract that is who we contract with. It was 2016 that the former CEO of Redflex was convicted in federal court of bribery and went to prison because of that scheme in Chicago, Illinois. Her signature is on Toledo's prior contract. It's the optics of that situation. It's what is perceived that is troubling, and public support where the city's involved with a company that has now a history of
Sir,
corruption.
you have reached your 3 minutes.
Okay. I did email it to the council members for further review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris. And yes, I got your email and read it. Thank you very much. Okay, Julie.
The next speaker is Moaz Alvi. Sir, you have 3 minutes.
I would like to thank you all for having this opportunity for us to speak.
We lost you.
Unmute. I think I got muted again accidentally. I was just thanking everybody and Chief Kroll, so I'll take my 3 seconds back. No, I'm just kidding, Julie. I just want my only question I really have is I don't feel comfortable with like people when they're using the handguns for the highway radar enforcement, even though I guess this meeting is specifically directed towards red flags and speed cameras. But since there's a mention of 475, Chief Crawley, if you could just, do you think there'd be better ways of visibility? Because most officers who are, hanging around 475 or parking their cars on bridges and standing behind objects that are not visible. If you could just elaborate on that being effective. And secondly, the effective use of roundabouts. I've seen many people use them wrong, which causes further accidents than preventing. And if you want, then the last thing I think is we're trying to be reactive to the problem instead of proactive. If we can prioritize education over a solution, I think that'd be a bigger solution to our problem than just popping cameras up everywhere. But if Chief Crawl can just ask about, officers standing on the highway versus state highway patrol, if I don't see a police officer and the police officer's hidden, or I just see a guy looks like a person holding a gun, really, really interesting.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I know you indicated that you just wanted statements.
Yeah.
I apologize. I mean, my chance came after the statement, so that was my only question, really.
All right. Chief, did you want to address it or are we moving on?
Let me I'll be incredibly brief. Trust me, whenever there was an issue with officers not being completely visible, I got phone calls, I got texts, I got pictures sent to me by every possible medium known to mankind. The minute that we found out that officers were doing that, we addressed it. We had to move and be more visible. We don't condone that. We don't encourage that. And we don't direct our officers to I'll use your word, hide. But I want to be crystal clear, and I know I'm going to see 1,000 negative comments after I say this, but there's nothing statutorily that says an officer has to be visible, whether doing photo enforcement or any type of traffic enforcement. If they want, they could be in a tree using red flags, but that's not how we do things here. Again, every time that had been brought to our attention, we've addressed it, and our officers know that we want them out there as visible as humanly possible while maintaining their safety. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chief. Julie.
Next would be Ron Johns. Sir, you have 3 minutes. Oh.
You're on mute, Mr. Johns.
Is there a way that you can go to the next person in line and I'll speak after them?
Certainly.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
The next person would be Rebecca Gotchett. Rebecca?
Yes, it's actually Cyril. This is using my wife's account, so I apologize. Yes, all right. Thank you, council members and everybody for joining and allowing us to speak. I have a concern. I was born in France, and so I've seen those cameras installed a long time ago, and I can attest of the efficiency of this. But there's a lot going on in terms of how the money is spent. So my first question is, and it was maybe addressed, maybe I missed that, but what's the planned spending of the revenue generated from this? And is there? I would hope that Toledo focus more on better infrastructure and also education, so that people can avoid doing those mistakes. The second question is, this is only two questions. The second question is, $120 is a lot of money for many of us and can be devastating for some family. Only pull them further down, stress and really have a terrible impact further beyond justice infraction. Is there a possibility to explore an income-based fine schedule? This is not to give more access to an easier access to infraction to people, but this is a lot of money for many of us, and I'm fearing what this could create. Thank you.
Sure. I don't know if you missed the beginning or part of the presentation. Part of the fine system is there are payment plans available at municipal court. And keep in mind, if a person is pulled over by a police officer for speeding, the minimum penalty is $143. That's where it starts when you're pulled over by a police officer. So it is a discounted ticket. Julie, next.
We can ask for Ron Johns again.
Yes, sorry. I've just been listening. Is there a way I could find you can go to the next person? That's why I'm just pushing it off.
All right, we'll skip. Go ahead with the next one, Julie.
Sean Nestor, you have 3 minutes to talk. Sean?
Sean Nestor, you're on mute.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sean Nestor. I'm a resident of the Old West End, and the passage of this proposed law would not significantly impact me. I have the income and the lifestyle to afford paying fines for speeding, but many people I care about do not. I'm testifying here today in opposition to this law on the grounds that it disproportionately affects the poor, who comprise over a quarter of our city's population. A thought-provoking statement I've been hearing a lot lately, which is that if the penalty for a crime is a fine, then the law only exists if you're poor. And I believe that applies here. When a single mother in poverty is late for work because her daughter missed a school bus and she has to make an unexpected stop there, that $120 speeding ticket is devastating. And it's devastating to her because paying it means taking food out of her children's mouths or going another month without heat. And it also means that non-payment, and I know we've talked a little bit about that in the presentation, but there's a whole black hole there when we talk about where it goes to collections and the impact that can have on individuals. We're talking about credit rating going down and preventing them from being able to get into a better apartment complex. We're talking about fines that keep compounding on each other until the point where there's potential that she gets her license suspended on other charges, or maybe even serving jail time. I did send each of you an article published December of last year by the American Bar Association. It's called Fees and Fines, the Criminalization of Poverty. I hope you each take time to read it, as it explains this phenomenon that's been growing in municipal centers all over the country and is drawing a lot of attention from activists and scholars everywhere. We may not be thinking about how this program is contributing to that, but I guarantee you that it is. There's another article I sent you from the Appeal that goes further and talks about how communities of color are also significantly impacted by programs like this. And while I think a lot of people are going to point out that, speeding has always been a safety concern, and obviously speeding is a bad thing. We don't want to encourage it. But it's kind of disingenuous to think about how a multi-factor compounding increase in the volume of these tickets is going to impact the poorest of us the most. Those people deserve to be thought about when we think about expanding programs like this the way they are. Obviously, there's other constitutional concerns. I think that matters. I know we're saying the municipal court's gonna take care of it. I really wish we would have had somebody from the municipal court on here, because I would love to see a judge or somebody stand up and say, we're absolutely 100% okay with the volume of tickets that are going to be coming through, and it's not going to impact our constitutional right to a speedy trial or due process. I really want to hear that for my sake, as far as confirmation and feeling comfortable. And I just want to close by pointing out that a lot of people have probably mentioned this, but the company we're doing business here is Redflex. This is a company with a reputation for corruption and bribery, and its executives have received jail sentences. Obviously, I don't need to remind this body earlier this year what happened on city council. This has left a tremendously bad taste in the mouth of the public. And if this passes, word is going to circulate about the reputation of the company that we're working with, and it's going to look bad for everybody. We need to heal. Let's move forward together. Let's not pass this law. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. The next person is Gene Redinger. Mr. Redinger, would you like to speak?
Sure. Hi, thanks for having this public hearing. To me, it's insane that 25% of the revenue is going to the service provider. There's a lot of concern regarding data privacy in my mind from this company, especially hearing about prison sentences for the signer of the contract for Toledo. To me, there's a few questions like, who has access to this data? Can federal entities tap into this system? Is the data hosted locally within Toledo? If the system was compromised, who would be liable for the information being leaked and abused? Another question for me is how much money was spent on this system and will be spent from the community in paying off the service provider through ticketing and such? Would these costs be comparable to more roundabouts or improving telecommunications infrastructure to reduce commuting as a whole? I feel as though these cameras really are a regressive tax on the people. Sitting here today, it seems the consensus from the community is pretty obvious in regard to this specific issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next would be Michael Welsh. Mr. Welsh, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Appreciate the opportunity. I'd just like to, again, this has come up a lot, but I'd like to remind council that Redflex is a publicly traded for-profit corporation. They do have an office in Arizona, but they are publicly traded on the Australian Securities Exchange. So they do have an obligation to their shareholders. If you look through their annual report, they mention revenue a lot. So they need to have a business model that keeps that revenue up. It's a complete gridlock in logic to think that this ticket bounty contract doesn't support their business model. Early on in the presentation, there was an assertion that you would look at engineering fixes to correct intersections that have a high rate of collisions. But again, Redflex has no incentive for that. They need a high number of violations to continue forever. And what was seen in Columbus is the vast majority, especially on the red light cameras, were very, very early red violations or where a motorist was rolling a right turn on red. Other points would be, consistency of traffic enforcement is sold as an advantage. It isn't. A motorist can be punished differently for the same violation, whether Redflex sends them the ticket or whether the officer issues the ticket. When an officer issues a ticket, it's not just a fine. It can escalate to loss of license, insurance surcharges, et cetera. And you showed that there's a proposal to buy the Redflex radar cam van. Well, that clearly requires a front license plate on the offending vehicle. Front plates are now optional in Ohio from July 1st. New registrations won't even get a front tag. So I have no idea why that would even be in the mix. Those are used successfully in other Redflex areas, especially in their home base in Arizona, but those states require front tags. So that's all I have. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johns, are you available to speak?
Sorry, I'm just and I just went and parked real quick. Is my 3 minutes starting now?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm speaking. All right. Just wanted to start off with I am a cop individual. I love our police. I started banning the cam, however, because I feel that these cams are not helping the police. They're not helping us as individuals.
Chair, with all due respect, can I interrupt? Chair Delaney, I'm sorry. Sorry, just out of respect, Mr. Johns, your phone is cracking up so much, and I know it's frustrating because we only have 3 minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I would love to have you start over when we can actually hear what you're saying. Sorry about that.
Okay,
everyone.
how many more people are in line? Would it be okay if I'm just driving home? So I'm really in the sticks.
Well, that's actually much better, so I don't know what changed. Chair Delaney, I'll stop talking. Sorry.
Is it much better now for you guys?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and give it a shot?
Yeah, so I parked and I'm all ready. But who I am is I'm a pro cop individual. I started ban the cam to get rid of these cameras because I do feel that we have a place in Toledo for cops that are out pulling people over for speeding tickets. And like many have mentioned, can really have empathy if needed and can really increase the morale of our cops and people. We have about 3,000 signatures already for this petition to get it on the ballot. So even if you guys were to put this up today, we can just put it on the ballot and have the will of the people, which we've seen is overwhelmingly against these cameras. There's no pro-camera pages or no pro-camera organizations. But I just had a lot of questions with the lady that was presenting. I know she did talk about death trends. She said that there was 13 deaths last year, 28 deaths this year. A 2-year statistical thing is that's no trend. That's just saying there could have been people that died in other areas. There was no list if those deaths occurred at areas that had the actual red flex cameras there. I did have a statement and a question is, if this was really about safety, why is there a $120 fine and not just a $20 fine? I really personally think if someone is willing to risk their life and run through a red light, then I don't think $120 matters much to them either, you know? And with that, I would like the question on the record, what percentage of the red light camera tickets are from direct red light runs and not right turns on red? With that said, what percentage of speed tickets are from consistent speeding? So someone going 70 miles per hour down a 40 instead of a temporary speed up to make it through a yellow light. And then obviously someone also mentioned if these police are not hiding and they're not supposed to hide, there is the question of why are they hiding? Do they have an incentive? Is there a commission for the more tickets they get? And I guess that is something I would like Chief Kroll to answer if he can.
There is no incentive. There is no mandatory number of citations that an officer has to turn in every day.
And because that leads the question to be, then why would they even think of the idea of hiding if you didn't suggest it? And if they have no incentive, like where would the idea come from?
I've already addressed that issue. I think we need to move on in the interest of time.
Thank you.
Yep, and thank you guys for letting me have that statement. I know that you guys know the will of the people, so I really hope that you do vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Next with their hand up is Julian Mack. Mr. Mack, you have 3 minutes.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, City Council and the City of Toledo. I want to just stress here the will of the people, which has been said here. And also, I want to stress to the City Council to make sure we're not making hypocritical actions as a city. Just this month, dozens of people testified on the influence of money in politics and the influence of corporations on government officials. I think it's been very clear in the city of Toledo throughout this past year that we need to move away from the influence of corporations drowning out the voice of the people. As Ron Johns alluded to, I am a member of Ban the Cam, which is a bipartisan group full of people full of Biden voters and Black Lives Matter, people with Trump voters and Blue Lives Matter folks. And so I want to stress that there is a bipartisan agreement within the city of Toledo that we don't want these traffic cameras. And we have to ask ourselves at this pivotal point in time, and our city and our city council's history is working with a corporation when we have already seen the damage that corporate influence can have on politicians in this city. Is this the type of move that will increase trust in our governing body? I believe the answer is absolutely not. So the corruption has followed Red Flex in many different places, not just in Chicago, but in Columbus and Cincinnati as well. And so we don't want, I don't think the public trust can take another hit of corruption here in Toledo. There have also been conflicting statistics on whether or not this actually keeps us safer, keeps our roads safer, as Brother Yusuf alluded to. I would ask I just want to make it clear that as a city, you know, we have also, the city council has also alluded to spending extra money with lawsuits with things like the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. I don't think, given the way that this has functioned on the state level and how many times we've had to go to court to defend this flawed piece of legislation, that we should continue to go against the will of the people and to defend something that the folks don't really want. Lastly, I just want
to reach 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. I just encourage everyone on city council to vote no against this. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Mike, you are next. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for giving me this time. I just want to say I am against these red light cameras. I think the premise of the Red Flex being financially incentivized per ticket is horrible for the citizens of Toledo. I agree with other citizens who have stated and pointed out the fact of how much a financial burden this can be for people who are on a fixed income or have other financial burdens in their life. And I just got on board with this meeting to express.
Well, Mike, I'm sorry, are you there?
Looks like
yes, I was. Did you hear anything I said?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was my whole thing. Yeah, I'm against this. I'm against this. And thank you for listening to me. You guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Next to speak would be Logan Hunter. Mr. Hunter, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Great. So people have brought up some excellent points. The one thing I don't think has been brought up is the prevention of outside money from coming into Toledo, as in these are a deterrent to, my friends and family who live in Michigan. During when the program was operational, they said, I'm not coming to Toledo. I'll go to Ann Arbor. I'll go to Detroit before I spend any money in Toledo. So that's the one economic side that we're overlooking. That otherwise, I just wanted to voice my opposition. I also encourage all members of council to vote no on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no more hands up, but I can go down the list of people present.
We've got Councilman Meldon with his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Meldon.
Thank you, Chair, and don't be sorry, Julie. You're doing a good job putting this together. I was just going to I didn't see any other attendees' hands up. I just wanted to make sure. I would love a chance to respond to some of these, but I think there's maybe another attendee that's up. I would love to wait until after they're done speaking, and then I just wanted to respond, if that's okay.
This gentleman has spoke already. If you'd like to hear him again.
Which gentleman?
Sure, go ahead, Julie.
Randy, you have your hand up? Randy?
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Okay, just a few quick things. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate you scheduling a second public discussion at a more reasonable time. I would also like to thank my coworkers for currently pulling double duty while I speak with you. So currently, if the tickets do get sent to collections, will they go on your credit report?
Yep.
And if they can't go on your credit report, what are the real consequences? Because I see speeding and accidents as a real problem in the city, and we have not come up with a real and complete solution to this problem. I don't understand why over half of us are content with barely addressing the problem instead of implementing real change. Why have we not worked with TPD to bolster their in-person traffic enforcement task force? People are being hurt and dying in traffic accidents. Sending someone a ticket days after the incident isn't going to stop them from speeding to their current destination. Sending someone 5 tickets with no real consequences will not stop them from going 80 on 475 either, nor will it stop impaired drivers, of which there are many. We need to give TPD the support they need to make real changes to their traffic task force, not a lazy Band-Aid for our very real open wound. I'm sure that TPD, who I respect greatly, would be up for the task if you gave them the correct tools to do it. And this council should be prepared to operate any program at a loss if this isn't actually about the money. Stop scaring the few into paying for the problems of the whole. If you don't make real changes, many people will continue to be hurt, and it will be because you all decided to do nothing substantial about it. Again, I appreciate your time in hearing my concerns. I implore all of you to actually represent the citizens of Toledo and vote no on this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no attendees' hands up at this moment.
I don't see any more. Let's go to back to Councilmember Melvin.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thanks to everyone who attended tonight, this afternoon, this evening, however you think about this time. I understand that the frustration of hearings and not hearing about these meetings, you know, in a soon enough time, and that's always a tricky thing. I'm glad we got to have the second conversation. I'm also I'm sensitive to the fact that sometimes it's tricky to limit these conversations to 3 minutes, and people come in with a lot more that they want to say, and I'm mindful of that as well. You know, I think sometimes we're trying to make the best out of a tough circumstance. How do you get a seemingly large amount of people in to offer comments on a very, very complicated issue? But, you know, we kind of have to ask, is this better than having no conversation, right? And I think it is. I think what we had here tonight was better than if we hadn't had the hearing. So I just want to say I appreciate everyone attending. I also just want to say that, you know, when I ran for office, I kind of had this sense that a lot of the people that supported me, I wasn't going to agree with them all the time, and they weren't going to agree with me all the time. Whatever. You know, I think that that's just a tricky part of public life and public service, is that agreement is not ever going to, you know, happen all of the time. For me, as I listened to all the comments and I was excited to do that and to hear what everyone had to say, I just want everyone to know that when I think about this issue, I just ask myself the question, is a better version of this red light camera program, which I believe this is a better version. I think there's better signage. I think it's going to be more transparent where officers are standing. You're going to know where the cameras are. I think the appeal process is better. Those are my personal thoughts about it. I think this is a better version. But the question I have to ask when I vote on this legislation is, do I think that this program makes our speeding problem in our city, does it make it better? I'm not voting to say, is this the perfect plan? Is this the perfect approach? I approach legislation to think, will this be better than where we are right now? And I think that it will be. I just want to say that, you know, I'm glad that I got to hear again and learn from so many people in attendance. I think that this, for me, it's probably going to come down to just a disagreement. One of the solutions that I haven't heard people talk about yet, that is real. This is a real solution to all of the problems brought up here, is for people to not speed. And I know that makes me sound, maybe like a pretty simplistic, I have a simplistic mindset, but it's actually what I believe. I think that the solution to so many of the concerns here is for people to stop speeding. When people do not speed, they will not be surprised by a ticket in the mail. They will not be concerned by someone holding a camera where they cannot see them. They will not be concerned with a mobile camera unit set up in their neighborhood. And when people do not speed, they will also not be worried about whether or not they're going to hit someone on a bicycle in the neighborhood, or whether they're going to hit, rear end someone when they glance down at their phone or off to the side at a billboard. Not speeding is the solution to this problem. And unfortunately, we're just not talking about that enough. The last thing I would say about the money, and then I'll stop. And Zach, I see you in the chat. You're right. I'm talking more than 3 minutes, and I'm sorry about that. The last thing I would say is that Gretchen brought up a really great point last time when we talked about this, which is the proof that this is not a money grab is that the success of this program will be measured on how little money we make. So to everyone looking to hold us accountable, this is what I want us to talk about. The metric should be, are we collecting less money on this program year over year? Because that means it's getting better. If we're collecting more money, we're not improving anything. And I'm fine to be on the record with that. I think we need to improve safety, reduce speeding. And if we do that, we'll actually collect less money on this program. That would be a valuable metric for us to measure. So again, everyone in attendance, thank you. Thanks for listening to me. I'm glad I got to listen to you. And I'm looking forward to being a part of the solution to making our streets safer. Thank you, Chair.
Councilman Ludeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for having a second meeting. I'll take credit for requesting the first meeting and can't take credit for requesting the second one, but I'm glad we did it. A couple quick things, and I think Mr. Dedinger and Ms. Gibbons can remember. People talked about the percentage going to red flex. When Mike Collins was on council, if you look back, we challenged the percentage that red flex was getting with the original contract, and they renegotiated the contract with the city of Toledo and reduced the percentage to red flex and a greater percentage than coming back to the city. So that's number one. I saw in the comments below, Mr. Mack typed in and wanted to have some data on whether accidents actually went down since the cameras had not been into effect. But I think Ms. DeBacher went through that as well as the chief. And it's obvious from the statistics and what the Blade article stated that serious accidents have increased in the period of time that the red flex or the cameras have not been in effect. It's also the time during the corona. And I do think that has affected everybody in unfortunate ways. I saw a comment down at the bottom that said, represent the people don't want this, but I find that, and I think probably everybody on the panel, that the people who are law-abiding folks are not going to join this meeting. They're happy with driving the speed limit. They're not going to speed. I do wonder how many folks that came on today have received tickets from red flex in the past and just have a bit of an axe to grind. Will it make it better? I think it will make it better. I agree with Mr. Meldon there. Will it save lives? It definitely will save lives. And to be honest, folks, the bottom line is you shouldn't break the law. You shouldn't break the law, whether it's speeding. You shouldn't break the law when you go into a Walmart or any kind of a store and you don't steal anything from there. It's a matter of doing the right thing. And the right thing is to obey the traffic laws. So unfortunately, there's too many people that don't. So I'll fully support this. I think it's much better as it's being amended and look forward to the vote at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman McPherson.
Good evening and thank you, Councilman Delaney. I want to first say thank you for having this second session, and I want to thank all of my council members for also attending. And thank everyone that spoke here this evening on your thoughts and your position as to yes or no, or should we or shouldn't we, and why, and all the questions. I appreciate that. And on my behalf, I will take everything into consideration. I will also go back and look at the presentation and govern myself accordingly. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating in this. This has been great discussion, and I hope we will continue having these type of discussions on matters of the city of Toledo. Thank you.
Mr. Delaney, Councilman Delaney, there is one attendee, Ron Johns, who put his hand up again. You're muted.
Sorry about that. We'll take a quick statement from Ron.
Ron, you can speak. Mr. Johns?
I unmuted.
Yes, you are.
So I think the main question is from Councilman Rob Ludeman, that the insinuation, if you're not doing anything, that you shouldn't be scared, but then he insinuated that we are all criminals, though everything we've pointed out have been that there might be, reasons, a red light, maybe going through a yellow. I would really like Councilman Rob Ludeman to address the fact that he just called, probably 60% of Toledoans, or maybe 70% who are against cameras, criminals. Because I just feel like, just politically, that's suicide, And as a Republican, I would really be offended that the only Republican on Toledo City Council would be calling 60 to 70% of Toledoans criminals. So I would just like a statement from him for that.
I'll leave that up to Councilman Ludeman. Do you have any comments, Councilman Ludeman?
I think Mr. Johns heard what he wanted to hear and not what I said. So
I think everyone in the comments section clearly said, like,
a back and forth, Mr. Delaney. If you want to mute him, that's fine. I'll respond to his question. The law-abiding people will be happy with the red light enforcement, the speed enforcement. And the majority of the folks in Toledo are law-abiding citizens. That is exactly what I was talking about, what I said. So unfortunately, all the presenters, I didn't see one that was in favor of the speed enforcement, and that's probably because the people who are law-abiding citizens are happy with it, and they're driving the speed limit on their way home right now. So thank you.
But can I make a second comment, or am I muted?
You're muted. We've got your comments. Thank you. All right, I don't see any more hands. Seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay, wow. So that was the meeting for the red light cameras. For those of you that don't know, really wild comments at the end there by Councilman Ludeman, who is the only Republican on there, basically was stating that, the only reason you wouldn't want these cameras is if you're a criminal. It's kind of ridiculous. But I do want to encourage everybody to go to Ban the Cam. all right, which is a local organization full of bipartisan group of people who are against these traffic cameras. If you go to Ban the Cam, then there is work being done, and that has been being done over the past couple of years, where citizens will kind of gather together and pass legislation that the city council won't do. So if you want to be part of that, we were hoping that we wouldn't need to go that far, but if you want to be part of that work, we're about halfway to the needed signatures that we need. We have about 3,000 signatures already collected to ban the cam here in Toledo, Ohio. So I encourage you to be a part of that. All right, I'm gonna go get off of here. And thank you for watching. Share, like, subscribe, and spread the word. Write your city council person, email them, let them know to stop the scam and ban the cam. All right, y'all. Peace.